Hi guys, my name's Dav and welcome to D&DGaming. If this is your first time visiting our channel, we provide honest and in-depth game reviews on a wide range of PC games and review them from the perspective of two experienced gamers. We highly recommend you click that subscribe button and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of our up and coming game reviews. If you find you like this review, remember to give it a thumbs up by hitting that like button. With that said, in for review this time around is story-driven walking simulator The Vanishing of Ethan Carter Redux. Reviewing the game with me is my brother Dale.
Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Vanishing of Ethan Carter Redux is a first-person story-driven mystery game developed and published by the Astronauts for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One and Nintendo Switch. Note that this review is of the Redux version, which was released in 2015 as a free update on the base game, which was simply called The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, and that was released a year prior in 2014. The main updates in the Redux version are the porting of the game to Unreal Engine 4 from the previous version 3 and includes a new save system amongst other minor changes. The game is open world and focuses entirely on exploration and discovery. It contains no combat of any kind and you cannot be killed. On this basis, it has been widely labelled as a walking simulator. To piece together the story, the player must solve the deaths of the Carter family and ultimately try and discover the reason for the vanishing of Ethan Carter. So Dav, what were your first impressions on this?
My first impression from screenshots, trailer footage was a kind of murder mystery walking simulator, I guess. One of those games where you spend a lot more time walking than doing anything else. Tacoma comes to mind. It's worth mentioning here that this was my first playthrough of the game. As Dale has played the original version before, for this review we decided to play the Redux version. That way Dale can talk a bit about the differences between the two versions.
Yeah, so as Dav mentioned, I played the original game many years ago and I do recall really quite enjoying it, and then we decided to do the Redux version. As mentioned in the intro, the changes between the two are relatively minor and mostly a graphical upgrade, even though I remember the original still looking very good for its time. However, I do remember one of my big issues with the original being the save system, as there was absolutely no way of telling when or if the game had saved at any point. This led to real frustrations for people who had to play through whole sections again when they realised it hadn't saved any of their progress. It really was an unusual oversight by the developers, but they did at least update that in this Redux version so you can see when the game is saved, as the three dots now appear in the upper right corner. But generally, yeah, it was a good update on the original and I enjoyed it just as much as that. So Dav, what were your general thoughts following your playthrough?
I actually quite enjoyed this. Its mystery plot was quite gripping. In terms of game length, it was long enough that it felt as though it wasn't rushed and thrown together, yet short enough that it didn't drag on like some of these story-driven games can.
Yeah, it's a very atmospheric game and almost horror-like in places. It was largely just as I remembered it in terms of the atmosphere. It's very slow paced for the most part, with puzzle-solving elements throughout. You do need to enjoy this genre of games, really, as if you have like a short attention span, you're likely to lose interest in this one. There are basically no hints in the game as to the puzzle elements. The game says at the beginning that it won't hold your hand, and this is very true. Perhaps they even went too far on that point, and a little guidance could be useful at times. You're very much left to go where you want and explore the area, but you'd always come across some sort of puzzle after spending some time looking around. Really did feel like a private detective at times in this one, the way you pieced the different bits together, and yeah, it is really quite a gripping story.
So in terms of graphic options, there's a smattering of options to choose from. Not many, enough to tweak and play with for optimum graphics performance on your setup though.
I found it was a reasonable range of graphic options, including the FOV slider, which is always nice in a first-person game. There is an advanced menu with extras such as motion blur and depth of field to tweak the graphics just to how you like it.
So in terms of graphics and graphic performance, we'll put our PC specs up on screen as usual, but the game ran well on my PC. I initially put the graphics on Ultra, but then found that there was a bit of stuttering and frame drops at times, so I dropped it down to High to maximise graphics performance. The graphics themselves in the Redux version at least are really quite nice. It certainly uses the Unreal Engine 4 to its full advantage. In terms of textures, a nice range, and they're all nice and realistic looking textures. The environment is really nice. There's a kind of perpetual sundown that gives the game a certain relaxing vibe to it. But on the other hand, combined with the woodland wilderness environment, a somewhat foreboding feel as you wander around. The lighting and the shadows really help to set the game's mood. The environment and lighting have clearly been really well thought through and implemented. It really felt quite convincing and well laid out, with lots of subtle differences in textures, changes that felt like they were well knitted together without having sudden changes or things that stood out too much.
As Dav mentioned, this is in the Unreal Engine 4, so good graphics are kind of to be expected with this engine. It really does make the most of it with this game. I left my settings on the default, which was everything on high, and it ran well. Didn't have any particular issues at all. High frame rate, and yeah, it just looked excellent. It's absolutely stunning in places. The environments are incredibly detailed, and I stopped a lot just to look around at all the details. The game world isn't huge, and you can tell they really went all out in their attention to detail. The game is set in a fictional town in Wisconsin in the United States, but the game world really feels like a mix of different areas brought together, and at times it feels like the Pacific Northwest, maybe Washington or Oregon in the fall. Other parts it felt almost like being in Scotland or somewhere in Eastern Europe or somewhere, particularly towards the end of the game.
So in terms of player controls, the player controls are very simple and limited as they tend to be in these types of games. Just were sad for moving around and mouse buttons to interact.
Yeah, nothing to really add to that. There are 4 key rebindings available.
So in terms of the game's story, in 1973, paranormal investigator Paul Prospero receives a fan letter from 12-year-old Ethan Carter, inspiring him to journey to Ethan's hometown of Red Creek Valley, Wisconsin. Upon arrival, he learns Ethan has gone missing and begins encountering unsettling paranormal phenomena, as well as evidence of recent violence in the village. As his investigation progresses, Prospero learns the Carter family's dark secret.
So in terms of the game mechanics, the mechanics of the game are quite simple. You walk around the environment looking for clues. When you're close to clues, text above reading inspect will highlight them. In order to understand how a set of events has happened, you're first required to find and inspect all the clues in the area. Once you've found all of the clues, say relating to a dead body, you then touch the body using the interacting buttons, and a portal opens and you visualize back in time to a point in which the event happened. You will then find some blue glowing orbs come out of the body that create multiple ghost-like figures that show the sub-events that lead up to the main event. You have to put these events in chronological order and then visualize. The sequence will then play out. However, if you've got the order incorrect, the sequence will cancel out and you have to reorder the sub-events and try again.
So in terms of UI, the screen is completely clear of any UI and simply has buttons and text that appear when interacting with things, and occasional sections of the story show up as text along the bottom of the screen. Personally, I feel that the less clutter to the screen, the better you can immerse yourself in the game, feeling like you're really there rather than just watching, playing through a screen. And I think this is really important for story-driven games, and it's done really well in this.
Yeah, there is virtually no UI in this one, very minimal, which is good though, I think, as it makes it much more immersive.
So in terms of sound and music, the voice acting and sequence cutscenes for the events was really good. Personally, nothing to complain about here.
Our boy. Chad is putting our boy in that crypt.
And bricking him up, giving him to the sleeper, forever.
The environment sounds are superb. They really help with the immersion to the game and have been clearly and carefully thought through. The music is also really good and suits the game really well. It's creepy at times and really gives that sense of suspense to the game.
Yeah, I agree. I found the background music really adds to the feel of the game. It's that mostly orchestral type of music, but really quite creepy at times and just pleasant at others. There's good ambient sounds which add to the atmosphere, but not an awful lot in terms of like other background sounds. The voice acting was great all round. I agree with Dav there, and absolutely no faults that I can find on that part.
Ethan was close. I could feel him. A pinprick of light in the darkness. He would know me. He would know why I'd come.
So did you come across any bugs or glitches?
I did notice there was one part where the controls were kind of confused. I was trying to complete a puzzle and the screen showed up that you had to use the mouse to rotate part of the puzzle. But after multiple tries, it didn't seem to work. I then realised it was actually keyboard buttons A and D that rotated the puzzle, so the auto game icon was incorrect on the screen. It was a one-off though, and I didn't find it anywhere else in the game.
I did come across one very minor bug. We'll put it up on screen now, but essentially just found there was a graphical issue where part of a machine wasn't showing correctly and it kind of glitched out of place. Just very random, but certainly didn't affect the gameplay in any way.
So to sum up, things I liked about the game. The story's quite gripping and unfolds at a good pace. I like the mechanics of how you piece together the clues and piece together the series of events. It's nice graphics with subtle detailed environments, work really well and have been clearly well considered during the game's development. It's very atmospheric. Sound plays a big factor in story-driven games, and it was really spot on in terms of voice acting, environment, sounds and music all play a part to really immerse you in the game.
In terms of things I liked about it, the graphics, setting and atmosphere, all excellent and look even better in the Redux version than the original. I like the puzzle solving element where you have to place the scenes in chronological order. Sometimes it was very easy, but other times you really have to kind of piece the scene together to work out how it all connects together. No spoilers, but I did quite like the ending, which is kind of haunting in a way and made you really think about what happened. You can also come up with your own theory as to the ending, as it's deliberately left ambiguous. I feel it's just a great piece of interactive storytelling. It's the sort of game you're thinking about days after finishing it.
So in terms of things I didn't like about the game, not much in this really, more nitpicky than anything else, but I guess as usual with walking sim games, there's a lot of exploration with very little interaction. This can lead to a lot of back and forth trying to find interactive elements that you need to find to continue the game on. The maze bit within the caves was annoying, where you had to wander around the tunnels finding some zombie looking bodies. I just found myself walking around in circles. Luckily it didn't take too long to do, but just felt the story went in a bit of a strange direction at this point. Plus you had Eddie from Iron Maiden who comes after you if he sees you.
In terms of things I didn't like, some areas are just utterly pointless to look around. There's just nothing there at all. You can walk quite long stretches of the game with absolutely nothing happening. It's not clear if you're even going in the right direction. See, this was my second playthrough, so I knew exactly where to go really. But it did remind me of my first playthrough where there was times where I was just thinking, where am I going here? There's nothing here, and just wandering around for quite a while. They could have maybe introduced some collectibles or something to fill out these areas, especially in this Redux version, which was an update. There's also not really anything in the way of wildlife, and so it can seem quite static at times.
So in terms of missed opportunities, Dale, do you think there's any in this?
Well, I feel manual saves would be nice rather than the simple auto-save system that they have. I'm really quite surprised they didn't add this into the Redux version, especially as I remember one of the main issues, as I mentioned earlier, being the original save system, which was just horrendous. And then in this, all they did was added the 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. Surely it's pretty straightforward to just put a save system in the game, as in you save where you want to save it and then continue from that point instead of from a predefined point in the game. As I mentioned in my negatives, perhaps some collectibles or something to have a reason to explore the otherwise empty parts of the map. So in terms of scores, I remember enjoying the original of this, and at the time I was really into the walking simulator genre. For me, this is up there with the best of that genre. The Redux version did make improvements, although these are somewhat limited, and it would have been nice for them to add a bit more. It's still a great game though, and I really did enjoy the playthrough, so for me it's an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, so for me, I really enjoyed the game. It's gripping, it's slightly creepy story combined with good graphics, good sounds, came together to form a really immersive game. And I found it hard to find anything I felt was bad about the game to point out. So it's a 8.5 out of 10 from me. Well guys, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Hit that bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video, and we'll see you in the next one.